Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are going to look at the conference that took place last week in Croatia on the future right of employment for people with disabilities. In particular, we are going to be looking at three main points that came out of the conference, which I picked out and I think are very interesting points. And then I'm going to give my opinion, interpretation of the point and give my own opinion. Hi everybody, my name is Lysaght and welcome back to your channel, LegUpAbility. If you like this video, please like and subscribe down below, up here somewhere, it will be up here. And yes, so let's get into it. That's all. Let's look at a point made by a journalist, a Croatian journalist called Lysaght. He is also a person with a disability, and he was asked the question, does he agree with the closing of sheltered workshops? He made an interesting point that maybe we should look at transforming the traditional workshop, sheltered workshop, into something more modern that can teach people with severe disabilities the skills that the market needs, the open market needs. Now, what do I think? We'll create a point. I'm all for mainstreaming of people with disabilities as much as possible. But with that said, there is always going to be a number of people who will need high support needs for everyday life, for employment, for enjoyment, for education, and won't be able to work alone unsupported in mainstream employment. So what do you do then? So for me, I think Damir is right. He has a point. We should look at it from transforming the old traditional sheltered workshop approach to something more modern and inclusive, but while also still providing the much needed support base for the people with disabilities who need that extra support, while at the same time getting as many people with disabilities out of those sheltered workshops into mainstream employment who don't need the extra support and who can do the job with the minimum amount of support. So it has touchy topic, particularly among certain sections of the disability community, and I can totally understand and agree with them. But it just goes to show how not everything is black and white, you know? You can't just take a person with severe disability out of a sheltered home, a sheltered workshop, and put them in a job in a mainstream office. It's not fair to anyone. Most of all, it's not fair to a person with disabilities, with a disability. So it's very touchy thing, and I just want to stress, and I want to, and I think Damir believes it as well. We both want to end segregation, but we want to do it in a realistic approach. We want to take a realistic and workable and sustainable approach to it, rather than just cutting it off. That doesn't work, unfortunately. Next up we have a point 5, an MEP called Kathleen Lan Jen Stupen, apologies for mispronouncing her name, from Germany. She made an excellent point when she was asked the question, and within that point she made even more excellent specific points. I don't know if you can do that, but I can't agree more with her, like with what she said. And she made a point about while fighting for an inclusive society, we have to think about not just about creating jobs, but also creating a transport network around it, and talking about education and internet access. And I want to highlight 2 aspects of her point and break it down. She talked about the connection between education and employment, and there is a definite link between the level of education you have and the chances of you getting a decent job that pays you a sustainable income. Now, obviously, if you have a third level education, you're going to have a better chance of securing a high paying job, unfortunately. And unfortunately, people with disabilities have a lower rate of education across the board, across Europe, than people without disabilities. And they are less likely to go to third level education. So I totally agree with her. Another point that she highlighted, and it is the lack of internet access for people with disabilities. So, how is it a problem with it? Well, if you think about it, as you know, the digital age, and companies have everything online. They post all their jobs online. There are websites dedicated to job posts and job searches. But if you're going to have the internet, the infrastructure to access the internet, or the education to access the internet, then how can you access these employment websites? How can you access specific companies and look at what jobs they have and apply for them? So, as you can see, the infrastructure of transport and education and the internet is essential to the chances of a person with a disability gaining meaningful and sustainable employment. Next up, we have the comment made by my former boss and the president of Inclusion Europe, that is an organisation that represents people with intellectual disabilities. And again, he made a very excellent point, and I can't agree more with him as well. He was talking about that we need to stop looking at the disability and look at the skill of the person. And once we do that, we can look past the disabilities and try looking for ways to how to promote this skill from the person with a disability. How do we help the person with a disability utilize that skill. Okay? And I think that's an excellent point. He is also, like me, against segregation, and I think we should aim for that. As much as we can, we should aim towards eliminating segregation among all areas. But now, the next point that he made is we should stop pilot programs. And I completely agree with this. Because while pilot programs are useful and are well intentioned, don't get me wrong, the problem with them that in most cases they aren't sustainable, and a person with a disability tend to end up in a locking effect, which means that they go from one pilot to the next, instead of going to a pilot and then to a job. Now, what tends to happen is they join a pilot scheme, do it for 6 months, then they say, oh, that's great, I've learned a skill or two, and they go try and apply for jobs, but they don't. The skill that they learned in this pilot scheme aren't relevant, or the company doesn't recognize the pilot scheme, and then the person with a disability is forced to go back on the social disability allowance, and in order to maintain a disability allowance in some countries, they have to do another pilot scheme. And it just goes on, and they get a repetitive cycle. So we should end those cycles. Totally agree. They're useless, they don't work. Now, with that said, there are good examples of what do work, and we should focus on them and support them and invest them. But there should be a limit to how many pilots a person with a disability can do. So it has to go somewhere. There can't be a continuous cycle of doing internship and pilots and the like. And quite often, the pilots aren't paid properly or aren't paid at all. So, in one way, it's kind of cheap labor. In another way, yes, you're earning the disability allowance or something else. A lot of times that's the meager funds. So yes, I totally agree. We should end pilot schemes that don't work and get through to be a cycle. Okay? These are my opinion and my thoughts from what I see online and from talking to people. The conference was really well received and an enjoyable conference, and a lot of people got to share knowledge across Europe, and that was the main thing. That's the main thing about this conference, to share information and different ways of doing things and to learn from each other. So, I really hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks very much for listening. If you like the video, please like and subscribe down below, and talk to you later. Bye.